पुरुष प्राकृते गुणे मुक्तो जीव निर्मुक्तो ब्रह्म निर्वाण मृच्छति संप्रसन्ने भगवती पुरुष प्राकृते गुणे मुक्तो जीव निर्मुक्तो ब्रह्म निर्वाण मृच्छति संप्रसन्ने भगवती पुरुष प्राकृते गुणे विमुक्तो जीव निर्मुक्तो ब्रह्म निर्वाण मृच्छति. Anyone else would like to recite this verse?
Dandavat Pranam.
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
Can I go through, please?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Samprasanne Bhagavati Purusho Pakritir Gunoi Vimukta Jiva Nirmukta Brahma Nirvanam Prichati. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else would like to recite?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I am also trying.
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
Samprasanne Bhagavati Purusho Prakito Gunoi Prakito Gunoi Vimukto Jivo Nirmukto Brahma Nirvanam Richati.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Samprasanne Bhagavati Purushaha Prakito Gunoi Vimukto Jiva Nirmukto Brahmo Nirvanam Richati. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to recite? Okay. We'll go with word-to-word translation. Samprasanne, upon satisfaction, Bhagavati, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purusha, person, Prakrite, from the material, Gunai, modes of nature, Vimukta, being liberated, Jiva Nirmukta, freed from the subtle body also, Brahma, unlimited, Nirvanam, spiritual bliss, Uchiti, achieves. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. One who actually satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead during one's lifetime becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions. Thus, being freed from all material modes of nature, he achieves unlimited spiritual bliss. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. In the previous verse, it has been explained that one should treat all living entities with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. By such behavior, one satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And upon his satisfaction, the devotees immediately becomes free from all material conditions. The Lord also confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita. Anyone who sincerely and seriously engages in my service immediately becomes situated in the transcendental stage, wherein he can enjoy unlimited spiritual bliss. Everyone in this material world is struggling hard in order to achieve blissful life. Unfortunately, people do not know how to achieve it. Atheists do not believe in God, and certainly they do not please him. Here it is clearly said that upon pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one immediately attains to the spiritual platform and enjoys unlimited spiritual life, unlimited blissful life. To become free from material existence means to become free from the influence of material nature. The word samprasanne, which is used in this verse, means being satisfied. A person should act in such a way that the Lord is satisfied by the activity. It is not that he himself is to be satisfied. Of course, when the Lord is satisfied, the devotee automatically becomes satisfied. This is the secret of the process of Bhakti Yoga. Outside Bhakti Yoga, everyone is trying to satisfy himself. No one is trying to satisfy the Lord. That means grossly try to satisfy their senses. But even those who are elevated to the platform of knowledge also try to satisfy themselves. In a subtle form, karmis try to satisfy themselves by sense gratification, and jnanis try to satisfy themselves by subtle activities or mental speculations, and thinking themselves to be God. Yogis also try to satisfy themselves by thinking that They can achieve different mystic perfections, but only devotees try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's process of self-realization is completely different from the process of karmis, jnanis, and yogis. Everyone else is trying to satisfy himself, whereas the devotee tries only to satisfy the Lord. The devotional process is completely different from the others. By working to please the Lord, by engaging his senses in the Lord's loving service, the devotee is immediately situated on the transcendental platform, and he enjoys unlimited spiritual life. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjala Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sargana Raghunatham Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Krishna Saitam Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sargana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanto Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishwapadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyadi Pashat Destarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Reciting the verse again. Samprasanne Bhagavati Purusha Prakrute Gune Vimukto Jiva Nirmukto Brahma Nirvana Uchiti. Translation. One who actually satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead during one's lifetime becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions. Thus, being freed from all material modes of nature, he achieves unlimited spiritual bliss. So this verse is connected to the previous verse. So we'll read the translation of the previous verse as well. In previous verse, it is mentioned that the Lord is very satisfied with his devotees when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. So the formula is mentioned that when we engage with devotees with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality, then Lord is satisfied. And then in this verse, it is mentioned that once the Lord becomes satisfied, what happens? Once the Lord is satisfied, the devotee becomes freed from all material modes of nature, and he achieves the unlimited spiritual bliss. We see this in this world. People struggle so much for their existence, and they work very hard to satisfy the senses of their senses and the family members. But still they are not able to satisfy their senses and not able to satisfy their family members. I've heard a story that in Arab countries, those rich ancestors of Arab kings, they have a strong desire to eat delicious food. But there's always a limit to how much people can eat. So they couldn't get satisfied with the amount of food they eat. So they invented special medicine. This medicine this was a pain-free vomiting pills. So once they eat this pills, they used to vomit all the food they have eaten. Their stomach was empty, and they used to start eating again just to satisfy their tongue. But even if they keep continuing this for long, how long they can satisfy their tongue? They will not be satisfied. Srila Prabhupada gives a very nice example in this context, that of watering a root. If there's a tree or plant, and if you start watering different leaves and branches, the tree will not be nourished. But instead, if you water the root, the entire tree or plant gets nourished. All the leaves, twigs, branches, everything get nourished. Sometimes some people may argue that there may be a dirt on the leaves, so we need to water the leaf as well. So Prabhupada gives another example. Prabhupada gives the example of stomach. So if you want to satisfy all the body organs, then we need to provide the food to stomach. And entire body gets nourished. from our head to the toenail, everything get nourished. So we can't argue logically on this example. You can't say that if you throw some gulab jamun in your ears or through your nose, or you squeeze gulab jamun with your hands, you will be happy and satisfied. No, that's not the way. So we need to provide the food to our stomach. Similarly, if we act in a way to satisfy the senses or satisfy the Supreme Lord, senses of the Supreme Lord, then we will get nourished, we get satisfied, and everything around us gets satisfied, becomes blissful. So Prabhupada in this purport explains that the karmis, gyanis, and yogis, they are not very happy because they are trying to satisfy themselves. And that's why they are very upset and not very happy. So it is mentioned here in the purport that the different people try to different ways, like karmis try to satisfy themselves by sense gratification. Gyanis try to satisfy themselves by subtle activities or mental speculations and thinking themselves to be God. And yogis also try to satisfy themselves by thinking that they can achieve different mystic perfection, Ashtasiddhi. But devotees try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's why devotees become very satisfied and happy. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami also explains the similar way in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 19, verse 149. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ateva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakala Ashanta. Bhukti is like a karmis, muktis, kamis are like gyanis, and siddhi kamis are yogis. They are never satisfied. But the devotees are satisfied because they are nishkam, they don't want to satisfy their senses. They want to satisfy the senses of the Supreme Lord. There's another verse we see in Bhagavad Gita. Bhoktaram yagatapsam sarvalokum maheshwaram shuhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shanti machati. So once the devotees knows that everything around them is Supreme Lord and everything is meant for Supreme Lord, just by knowing them and acting in this way, they can feel peaceful. Many times devotees have a doubt that I'm not very advanced devotee and I'm on a very low level of devotional standard. How can I perfect myself? Because Prabhupada is talking in this verse here about liberation. How can I get liberated in this life itself? Sometimes devotees have more faith in their anarthas than the potency of spiritual master and the Supreme Lord. So that's why they feel this way. But we need to remember that the Supreme Lord is very, very powerful. He's the most powerful, and he can remove our anarthas if we be sincere in our devotional practices. So I remember in this context, a two-step formula to please Krishna. My spiritual master was here. His own is Vedyaspa Swami Maharaj. And he mentioned in one of the lectures that he gave in temple that how can we please Krishna? We can please Krishna if we please our spiritual master. Now, how do we know our spiritual master is pleased? If devotees around us are pleased, then our spiritual master is pleased. So step process to please Krishna is to first please devotees around us, and then spiritual master will be pleased. And if spiritual master is pleased, then Krishna will be pleased. And the same thing that we see here in these two verses that we see in previous verse and this verse, that the Lord is very satisfied with the devotees when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. So that's why we are trying to please devotees around us. And then in this verse, we can see that eventually, even Krishna is pleased if we have this loving environment. There's a parallel study we can see in this context of Dhruva Maharaj from Srimad Bhagavatam, that in 6th canto, chapter 4, there's a very similar incidence happens where Daksh Prajapati's story is mentioned, which is quite similar. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has mentioned in his commentary there, and Prabhupada also explained that Daksha Prajapati performs austerity and he chants Hansaguya prayers. And he also attains the darshan of the Lord. Actually, he performs the austerity for 3 manvantaras, whereas Dhruva Maharaj only performed for 6 months. Daksh Prajapati also gets a benediction. He had also has a material desire, and he wanted to increase the population of the universe. And Lord gives him the benediction that inspired by Maya, you will procreate many children, and your children will also procreate many children. In this way, you will keep on increasing numbers of living entity within this universe. And we can see nowadays the population of the world is increasing every year. So the benediction of the Supreme Lord is working. So now let's see in comparison with Dhruva Maharaj and Daksha Prajapati. They both had material desire. In one sense, Daksha's desire was better than Dhruva Maharaj's desire because he wanted to engage in service which was given to him. And both performed devotional service. Both had the darshan of the Lord. And both received a benediction and fulfillment of their material desire. But Dhruva Maharaj happens to be much superior to Daksha. He received a Krishna prem. So what is the difference here? The difference is that Dhruva Maharaj performed the devotion service under the guidance of pure devotee like Narad Muni and Suniti. That was not the case for Daksha Prajapati. And Dhruva Maharaj had no background of offending any other Vaishnava. He was offended by others, but he did not offend others. Whereas Daksha Prajapati had material desires, and he had a background of offending Lord Shiva in his previous life. And that was a very grave offense. It was intentionally committed offense to disrespect Lord Shiva in front of so many people. And this deprived him from getting Lord's real mercy. Although he got the darshan of the Lord, but he was thrown into whirlpool of karma. He was not given the bliss of prema, which Dhruva was given. So there's always something even bigger than the darshan of Lord, which is like Krishna prema, and that we can get through the mercy of spiritual master, through the mercy of devotees. So two things we can understand from this comparison, that mercy is very, very important. Our endeavor is one thing. Daksha Prajapati did endeavor for more longer period than Dhruva Maharaj. But the mercy of Vaishnavas, mercy of spiritual master is very important in one's spiritual advancement. There is another thing that I remember when I went for a retreat in 2018 in Wellington. Amrish Maharaj Prabhu from Wellington, he covered this 5-step to understand how much we are advancing in Krishna consciousness. Many times we have this question in our life, that I've been practicing bhakti for many years now. How do I know if I have advanced or I have progressed in my Krishna consciousness? So this is a 5-step formula. If we answer these questions, 5 separate questions, then we know if we are progressing in our Krishna consciousness or not. If you're making note, you can make a note of 5 alphabets, SRCGD. SRCGD. So the S stands for service. We need to ask questions to ourselves that how much eager am I to serve others, or do I want to be served? So answer to this question, we can understand the humility within us. The eagerness to serve others is a form of humility. And this should not be interpreted to mean that we cannot take service from others. To help in our service, we can always take service from others. But we should not expect service from others. When we render services, we should aim to please intentionally. We should have our wholehearted effort to please others, not just incidentally. We did something and somehow or some other someone would please. That should not happen. And service renders to us should be considered as a favor on us. And we should always remember that for a long time. But any service that we render to others should be our duty, and we should forget that immediately. The great souls are always eager to serve Hari, Guru, Vaishnavas selflessly, and they always want to do voluntary without someone giving them the task. They want to do with a lot of love, unconditionally, without any interruption, and they serve with their body, minds, and words. And this should be our aspiration and our yardstick to measure our progress, how much we are progressing. So that was service. The next one is R, stands for respect. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has mentioned a lot of things in the Shikshastakam about this. Verse. So the question we need to ask is, how much eager am I to respect others? Or do I rather strive after being respected? So respecting others includes a respect for their individuality, their interests, their expectation, their capacity, needs, convenience, and also their comforts. We should never hurt anyone with thoughts, words, or action. When we respect individually, we recognize that everyone is different, and we should treat them accordingly. Everyone is different. We see in the Ramayana, when the bridge was being made, the efforts by the small squirrel and Hanuman were different, but Lord Ram recognized the efforts of everyone. So similarly, there may be different devotees with different endeavors and different capacities. So unless we respect others, we cannot be effective preachers, whether it to be devotees or non-devotees. So we should always respect, and we should not expect any respect for ourselves. The next one is C, stands for care. How much do we care for others? Or we only focus on caring about ourselves? Or we think about how much people are caring for us? The care, devotional care could be in any different forms. It could be physical care, providing them food, shelter, looking after their health. It could be emotional care by being empathy, listening to them. Social care, giving them association, taking their association, serving in community programs. Spiritual care, helping in somebody's devotional service, helping in their sadhana, their chanting, their hearing. It could be anything. I've seen in many devotional communities that there is an aspect of care very strong. Whenever there is someone sick, people take an effort, visit them, ask about their health, provide some prasadam to them. This is a sign of advancement, that devotees are thinking about others, that somebody may be in inconvenience, they reach devotees and talk to them, and they are not well. They see them in a hospital, they meet them. So it is one form of care. This also we see in Vidura's example. When Vidura comes back to Hastinapur, the Pandavas and entire Hastinapur community, they express so much of happiness, so much of care. They look after small needs of Vidura, and they care for him. And we see this care in many other forms in scriptures. It is also one form of 6 loving exchanges between the devotees. The next one is G, stands for gladness, gratitude. We can also see this as a gratitude. The question we need to ask ourselves is, am I glad upon seeing advancement of others, or do I envy them? Envy is one of the original reasons why we are in this material world. And it leads to a lack of loss of intelligence. It makes our heart very hard-hearted, stone-hearted, and it can also cause a lot of destructive actions. Therefore, it is very important that we give up envy. And if you want to make serious progress in our spiritual path, the great souls know that the all talents and abilities come from Krishna. So when we envy somebody's progress or somebody's special talents, that somebody's singing very nice kirtan, somebody is doing very nice devotional service, or somebody is wealthy, or whatever opulence they may have, and we envy them, that means we are envying spiritual Lord as well, Supreme Lord as well. Because all these opulence are coming from Supreme Lord. So by being envious to someone's abilities or opulences, we are becoming envious to Supreme Lord as well. So if you want to progress seriously in our spiritual path, then we need to give up the envy. There are a lot of things that can help. Is one form is like we can do sincere chanting, attentive chanting. We can offer prayers. The second thing is we can glorify devotees. By glorifying others, we can remove this envy from our heart. The next one is D for dependence. So how much we are dependent on Guru and Krishna, or we are dependent on our own arrangements. Because many times we see some roadblocks, or we hit a wall and we don't see any path beyond. At that time, how much we are dependent on Krishna, how much we are dependent on spiritual master, or we are dependent on ourselves. So this is a very symptom of surrender. And it is one of the final measures of our ability to depend on senior devotees or equals for guidance and suggestions when we are stuck into difficult situations. The ability to depend on someone else can come from seeing ourselves as insignificant and lower. Moreover, who can fill a glass with the glass is completely full? There's nothing can be filled in this. So if the glass is empty, then there's a lot of things can go inside. When the heart is full of surrender and dependence, then the Krishna Prem can come into the heart. The surrender devotees are always protected in life through the dependence under the guidance of Guru, Vaishnavas, and Lord Krishna. So we need to ask our questions, this question to ourselves, and we find an answer. We can also ask the question that why we have not gone back to Godhead in our previous life. The answer is that simple, that because we didn't perfect ourselves in the previous life. And many times it happens that if we are not perfect in our previous life, whatever need or thing that is becoming an obstacle in our path, then the same situation comes through in this life as well. And we have to pass that test. Unless we pass, we can't go back to Godhead. We can't attain the liberation. We can't attain the Krishna Prem. We can see this from a story of Bilvamangal Thakur. So in his previous life, he was a very advanced devotee, sannyasi, but he couldn't perfect. And that was he was born again. And he was born in a very, very rich family. But he had a similar obstacle. He had intense attraction to sensuality. A Chintamani was a prostitute. He was very attached to her. One day there was a torrent of rain, a flood in the river. It was storming rain. But still he had a desire. He just completed final rites of his father. And then he had a desire to meet Chintamani. So he swam across the very torrential rain in the river, and he took a shelter of blown up corpse just to be able to swim and cross the river. When he reached the Chintamani's home, he knocked the door, couldn't open the door. He climbed using a cobra snake into the house, and he had a lot of bruises and everything. When Chintamani saw him, she was struck with wonder that how come the Bilvamangal Thakur has come in this situation, so much of rain. And Chintamani mentioned that if you had this much attraction for the Krishna, then you will be perfect in your life, and you would go back to Godhead, and you would attain the Krishna Prem. So the same moment, the window of his previous life opened. When the Chintamani spoke these words, the words went into the ears of Bilvamangal Thakur, and he could realize that I need to fix this thing in my life. He immediately left for Vrindavan. When he was going to Vrindavan, on the way, he again met with the same obstacle. He was attracted to a Brahmana's wife, eventually, and he saw that moment again. But he could come out of that situation, and he passed the test. And then finally, he could capture the Krishna in his heart and attain the perfection. So similarly, we may sometimes see that we may be getting some difficult situations in our life. Again, the same situation. Sometimes some devotees may not be comfortable, or they may be finding some challenges with their anger, or sometimes with their facilities, what they get around their devotional service, sometimes some impediments, and sometimes some challenges in devotional interaction with other devotees. So these are the tastes from our past life. Unless we pass this test, we won't be able to progress further. So we need to pass this test. All these obstacles, unless we pass it, we'll have to take birth again in this life as a conditioned soul. So going back into the same context, the Srila Prabhupada is focusing that we should try and satisfy the the Supreme Lord, in that way, there's the only way that we can perfect our life. We see so many devotees, they perfect their life in the same life itself. So let us all focus on, and this class is specifically for me. I need to focus on a lot of my anarthas, and I need to pass this test. So meditating on this, please give me your blessings that I can perfect my life in this life itself and get rid of my anarthas. Because by the blessings of devotees and spiritual masters, everything can happen very smoothly and easily. So that's all I had to say. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If there is any comment or questions from anyone?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare
What a
Krishna,
beautiful class.
Thank you,
Beautiful class right from you started it today. You gave a lot of information and thus SRCGD. So beautiful and so relevant to our spiritual life. It really touches each and every devotee. It's so beautiful and so practical. Thank you for your experience and sharing your comments with so many examples, especially the last one, Billamangal Thakur. We know the story, but we don't really understand when it is not being discussed properly. But today is realized, yes, how wonderful and how beautiful things can happen if we are serious about our devotional service. Following this CGD. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It's all the blessing of Vaishnavas. Like Amrish Maharaj Das Prabhuji mentioned this to me in retreat in Wellington, SRCGD, and that was very, very helpful. And this Billamangal Thakur's episode in his past life was mentioned by Sachindanand Swami in one of the lecture, because I didn't know about his past life. It was very interesting to understand from that perspective as well. Thank you, Prabhuji, for your nice comments.
Even I was listening one of the lecture of Nitai Shivani Mataji. Oh man, such a beautiful explanation about this, how he was attracted and what happens stage by stage. It's a beautiful explanation. Thank you, Prabhuji, once again.
It's very inspiring. Yeah, Billamangal Thakur's story is very inspiring for us. Thank you, Prabhuji. Any other comments or any other questions?
Prabhuji, thank you for the nice lecture. And just to supplement what has been, you have already told, you have shown us the practical obstacles in our life in going back to Godhead. And because you have explained so nicely, I think we can imbibe in our life to look after the devotees first, and we do not make any envy. And from them we learn, and in the process we purify ourselves. And that is the way to achieve the qualities of the Vaishnava. And the Vaishnava is never envious of any other person, because he knows that being envious to any other person becomes envious of the Lord Krishna himself. So you have shown us a very practical guidance. Thank you, Prabhuji, for that. And if we can imbibe in our personal life, we can definitely progress. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, devotees, we still got a few minutes. Anybody like to have any comments or reflections? Please. So, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, from my side, I'd really like to thank you for a very illuminating class, really giving some practical tips on improving our spiritual life, and especially how to judge if we are progressing in our spiritual path. What are the parameters to look at? To some barometers where we can see how we are progressing. So also what struck me very, very nicely is that you mentioned that this challenges from a previous life is also it's a learning experience for us. You mentioned why we are struggling, why we have taken this birth, because we don't recognize that some of the challenges we had in the previous life, we are not we are not looking at it very practically how to overcome that, and that becomes the obstacle, especially anger, enviousness, all these unearths within the heart. So how can we sort of know these unearths are coming from the previous life? Is it we have developed it now, or is from the previous lifetime?
Yeah, sometimes if it is very deep rooted and happens spontaneously, then we can understand that it's coming from previous life. Sometimes it could be from present life as well. Like, for example, the way our upbringing has happened, something may be attached to that as well. Like, for example, somebody's watching a lot of TV in our family when we were very kids. So sometimes I see that devotee may have a lot of attraction for television programs, news channels like that, if they've grown up in that situation. So that could be from their current life and the previous upbringing. So we just need to introspect a little bit that is it coming from this life? But sometimes we may have a spontaneous attraction for something. So because our body consists of three things, like our gross body, then subtle body has mind, intelligence, and ego. So the mind and intelligence stores this subtle impressions from our previous lives and many lives as well. That could come from there as well. So if something is very deep rooted, then we can see that it's coming from our mind. Mind carries from our previous lives as well. Since it's subtle, we always carry our subtle and soul in every new body that we get. So that shows that it is coming from previous life that way. But because the karma is very gahano karma gati, it is very, very hard to understand, pinpoint specifically that this thing is from previous life and this thing is from our current life. But anyway, whatever the situation may be, we can always try and try to eliminate that by cultivating a positive desires. And there's another way of doing it this as well, that by confidentially we can talk to some devotees about some of the anathas that we have. It's always good to have some strong association where we can share our heart. And then devotees are very merciful and they can help us based on their experience, or sometimes we may not be able to see what we are having problems. Devotees may kindly able to suggest something that may work for us as well.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Also, regarding service, you say one of the parameters to measure spiritual progress is the mood of doing your services. So sometimes I reflect that sometimes the service comes on its own accord, and I think service is very rare. And if you get the opportunity, you should grab it. So there are billions of people on the planet, and how many people get an opportunity to serve the Lord by, say, offering a flower or come to temple to do some service. So I think it's a great boon, a great blessing for a devotee to render some devotional service, some even menial service. It's very, very rare, and I think by Srila Prabhupada's mercy and the mercy of the Vaishnavas and Gurus, we are very fortunate to have this opportunity in this lifetime. Otherwise, how many people even consider going to temple or doing some service to devotees? Just amazing. So it's very rare. So I think we should grab it. Prabhu, thank you.
That's true. So true, Prabhuji. Sometimes we take granted the devotee association that we may have, but it is very true. Once we lose the association, at that moment, we realize, in my personal life, I sometimes used to think in the past that this particular devotee is not so good, and I don't want to associate with him. But the moment when you are stuck in a situation when you are not around devotees, at that moment you think that even the best of the karmis is not so good compared to the worst of the devotee that you may have experienced in your life. So you even hanker for association of the worst of the devotee that we may have thought in our mind compared to the best of the karmis. So that comes as a realization sometimes.
Thank you very much for this very illuminating point. Devotees, so we still got a few minutes. Anybody want to come forward with any comments, reflection, realization before we close? Okay, it doesn't seem to be. So on this, Prabhuji, I'd like to thank you very much for coming forward this morning and giving us a very illuminating class on this particular verse. So many important points you covered, and especially how to judge our spiritual progress. Thank you very much. His Grace Parjanya Prabhu ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Vanchakar Padravesha Pasme Vicha. Patitanam Pavani Krishna
Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
Ananta Guru Vaishnava Vrinda ki
Vrinda ki
jai.
jai.
Yeah, good. Very well.